gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 263.
Woo.
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Saturn, we have housekeeping. First up, as always, you can check the episode description for timestamps to jump to the topic at hand.
Is it really
Also,
as always?
It is as most ways. It's the word. It is now. As most ways, you can check the episode description.
As usual.
Also, our producer Guy is going to be on the show after the ending theme. So at the end of the show, he's going to come on for his monthly segment to talk to us about. We don't vet it at all.
No.
We don't. I mean, to be fair, we don't vet anything, but we especially don't vet that.
Right.
And I like to imagine that he has no idea either, and he just thinks of something right before the show ends. And so stay tuned.
He just goes into that segment going, "Oh God, oh fuck, oh God, oh fuck." What do I talk about?
My week. I did finish Golden Sun.
Nice.
And it feels like it has been so long since we recorded.
Right?
Is that just me? It
No.
just feels like
It feels like it's been an eternity.
Ever.
Yeah.
Because in my head I was just like, oh, I finished Golden Sun. I'm like, I finished that like a month ago.
Yeah, I was looking through because I was trying to remember what episodes we did last, and I went and looked at those. I was like, no, that wasn't the last recording session. That was like a month and a half ago.
I'm glad it's not just me then.
Yeah.
I did finish Golden Sun, evidently like shortly after we finished recording because I don't even remember. I think it was that weekend. Actually, I think it was the next day I finished Golden Sun. I did get the part 2 of the game in the mail. It's 2 games, but they really are part 1 and 2. They're not really. It's not a sequel. They just cut it in half.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a nice long break before I tackle the second version. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but like it was that thing where I was still enjoying it, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna stop for a long time, and I'm gonna come back in like a couple months." And,
I can't do that.
Do the next. Really?
Yeah, if I'm really enjoying a game and I stop, I will not come back to it. And if I do come back to it, I won't remember where I am, and I will either start over from the beginning again or just never finish it.
Well, since it's part 2, I already have to start at the beginning, and it's already good because the part 2, from what I understand, so minor spoilers for Golden Sun. The second one, Lost Age, you do play different characters, so I assume it's going to do some basic introductory stuff. So I figured it was a good break point to kind of, I have a habit of wearing myself out on games and burning myself out on them. So I was just like, I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I'm gonna give it some space. I'm gonna let it breathe.
I've played through Trails of Cold Steel 1 4 times this year so far. That's an 80-hour game.
I don't want to say you have a problem because
a
a lot of that is why we get so much content done for the show. So it directly benefits me. But
yeah, no, I definitely have a problem.
Were I a third party observing this situation, I might think you have a problem.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know what? You're getting your money's worth out of your games. As long as you're enjoying them, it doesn't matter how you enjoy them.
Right.
That's fine. Of all things to be weirdly obsessive about, video games is one of the most
healthiest,
benign.
Right.
There you go. I also am about halfway through Pokemon Leaf Green. It was the next GBA RPG I was picking up after Golden Sun. I was like, man, I really like the original Pokemon games, and I struggle to go back to them because they are very dated today. And I never played the remakes, the Leaf Green and Fire Red on GBA. I didn't play any of the GBA Pokemon games. That was when I was that age, Pokemon went from being the thing we all love to being the thing that everyone gets made fun of if they still like it because it's for babies. And it stayed that way until high school when it again became the thing everyone loves because, I don't know why. Kids.
I was in high school when Red and Blue came out, so I didn't know that there was that curve there. So that's interesting because we just had a bunch of high school kids that immediately loved it, and then others that would make fun of them for it. I didn't know that there was like a wave form there.
Well, it came out when I was in about 4th grade, give or take. And then, so it was cool. We all did it in middle school. Pokemon was the cool thing. And then elementary school, I mean. And then we hit middle school, and it was like, oh, you still play Pokemon, that baby game? So, yeah. And then you hit high school, and everyone's like, hey, do you still play Pokemon, that baby game? And you're like, no, I got made fun of. I got rid of it. And they're like, you're dumb. So I'm halfway through Leaf Green. All of this to say that Leaf Green is very good. I'm very much enjoying it. If you're like me and you kind of like the very no frills Pokemon that it's sort of started out as, where it wasn't a lot of extra stuff and side quests and everything. It really was just like, go to a town, see what's going on in the town, solve the town's problem, do the gym, go to the next town.
Yeah.
Then I would highly recommend Leaf Green, even though I'm only halfway through it. I can guess how the rest of it goes because I've played the game before.
Right.
And then finally, I picked up an HDMI, one of those HDMI upscalers for my GameCube.
Nice.
One of those that uses the open source GC video software. I got the Carby from Insurrection Industries, which is not the one you probably see plastered all over Amazon and stuff that is like purple and extra wide. That's the other one that I forget what it's called. That one has the
Eon,
upside of something like that. Yeah, I think it is the Eon Mark II.
Something.
I got the Carby, which is half the cost of the Eon.
Nice.
Because the Eon also has like 3.5 millimeter audio out, and it has pass through for like component cables. If you want to, you can hook up Wii component cables to it and stuff. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted my GameCube over HDMI, and the Carby shipped quick, and it arrived, and it works great. And now I can play my Game Boy Advance games via HDMI on my big TV.
In progressive scan too.
Yes, because I already have a hacked Wii with all of my GameCube games on a hard drive.
Yeah.
I don't need a GameCube that can display in 480p and look nice.
But
I
you
need a
want
Game
one.
Boy Advance that can
Yeah.
on my TV. So I got that all hooked up and then promptly stopped touching it.
Naturally.
In my head, I was like, oh, now I can put my games on the TV. And then I was like, well, then how am I going to watch TV while I play Game Boy Advance? But I am also waiting to get a controller adapter so I can use a non-GameCube controller on the GBA, because the GameCube controller does not lend itself well to the GBA.
Even the officially licensed Game Boy Player controller doesn't particularly lend itself well to all GBA games.
Because it still kept those buttons, which is weird.
But it added a select button.
True. RAFnet does have a classic controller to GameCube adapter that I'm waiting to come back in stock. Because then I can use my classic controllers on my GameCube, which means my wireless 8-bit Super Nintendo controller or my Super Nintendo Classic controllers. It gives me a lot more options. Aside from USB, classic controller plug is my most common controller plug in my house.
Right. Yeah, I had, back in the day when the GameCube was still around, I had this universal adapter that you could plug into a GameCube or Xbox that would let you use PS2 controllers on either system. And I have no idea what happened to it. At some point over the last 20 years, it's vanished.
They still sell PS2 to GameCube adapters. The only problem is that then I have to use a PS2 controller. And I don't like them at all. I've never enjoyed the PlayStation controller. I just don't.
Weird.
I never have. I never liked the thumbsticks. I never liked the terrible D-pad. I never liked that the buttons were shapes instead of letters. There, I said it all right. I don't like the DualShock. Okay.
I've played so many hundreds of hours on DualShock controllers.
I mean, yeah, me too.
Except for DualShock 3. That one I've barely touched.
I've played a ton on it too, but I always hated it. Anyway, that's about all I've been up to. Just more GBA shenanigans. Although I will say, my GBA collection is finally in a state where, aside from a couple standouts, I'm comfortable saying it's complete for now. I'm done for now. I'm not trolling eBay every day looking for GBA games, except for the other day you were like, hey, you should get Tales of Fantasia, and now I'm kind of thinking about that. But other than that, it's basically done.
Other than all these new things that you're learning about that you probably also should get.
Because I ordered drawer dividers that fit my GBA games in their little individual plastic cases that they're all in, with their little labels printed and stuck on the top. And I have 3 of them, and they're exactly full right now. So if I buy any more, I need to redo that whole situation. So I'm done for now.
Back when I first went crazy buying GBA games, which was when the system was still live, my girlfriend at the time bought me at a thrift store this wall-mounted CD rack, and it was just like super, super thin. Like you'd barely be able to put like a centimeter of the jewel case in there, and then it would just hang based on gravity. And it held like 40 CDs or something. And she discovered that if she put it on top of my regular game shelves, I could just set GBA games in there, and they would like fan back, and I could fit like 80 of them in there, which I didn't have 80, but it was still really really nice looking to have them all fanned there. And I was like, this is perfect. This is the perfect way to display Game Boy or Game Boy Advance games. And then she was like, it's great. This will work great for you. And then every time she walked through the room, she would feel compelled to just like brush her hand across it and just knock them halfway across the room and be like, oops, sorry. And then just leave the room. So it did not.
Sorry, I ejected all of your games UMD style across the room.
Pretty much.
My mistake.
Yeah. So it did not stay in active use very long.
Yeah, I see a lot of people with little display stands and stuff. First of all, mine I keep them in a very compact area.
Right.
But I do prefer them. I prefer it that way. I like having them because they're just in these little drawer dividers, and it's just 3 drawer dividers that all stack on top of each other.
Right.
And they're like 9 inches by 3 inches. They're clear and they fit the games. They got labels on the top ends. It works great. I like it. And I do not need to buy a bunch of Universal game cases and get cover art printed for them. I don't need to do that.
Like I did.
I can't stop myself from wanting to do it, but I don't need to do it. And that's the important thing.
I gave you a bunch of GBA-sized cases, didn't I?
Not nearly enough.
Yeah, I still have a bunch more.
I need lots more of them.
I have like 40 more.
Well, I'll take them, and you can print me some cover art, and I'll pay you for it.
Actually, I think I sold
later.
them on eBay at some point.
Gosh, dang it, Saturn.
I still have like 10 just in case, but
I need 44 of them.
Oh, dang. Those were, the original ones I got that were replacement off-brand DS cases that were just shit. They're like super flimsy. They felt like the kind of cases you'd get used at a Blockbuster Video. Right. I got those at a electronics store that was going out of business in Arlington. The entire crate of 200 for $2. But then I bought these really nice ones that fit the Game Boy Color and Game Boy games.
Yeah, that's the ones I got a bunch of from you.
Yeah.
They are the UGCs, yeah.
Yeah, those are really nice, and they cost like $3 a piece. So
so I've got your like 20-something, which means I still need 20-something more, and then I got to get the artwork printed. My printer's black and white, so...
You just print them in black and white, and then go buy some highlighters, and you just color it in.
It's
perfect.
It looks so real. Anyway, that's all I've been up to is that stuff.
So the last week, after we did our show and everything, I impromptu decided that I wanted to do a Link to the Past stream.
Yes.
On our Twitch channel, and it was one of those things that, like, when I was first saying it, I was like, I want to do this at some point in the future. And then somebody said, well, if you want to get on tonight and test it, we can make sure that it sounds all right. And I tested it, and I was like, well, I'm already fucking here. We're doing this. and I just barreled through the entire game.
Yeah, you, me, and Guy, it was a 4-hour stream of...
And Pablo came in for a bit, too.
Yeah, and it was... mostly you playing the game competently and me asking you how the hell to do stuff because I was playing it on GBA for some inexplicable reason as you were playing it.
And I was trying my best to guide you the right direction without knowing what was going on your screen.
Right.
And sometimes I think I did.
It was, you were relatively accurate. Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to see if I could finish it in a reasonable amount of time and if I could do some neat glitches and tricks on the stream. Which, granted, I stole all of those glitches and tricks from competent speedrunners who can finish the game in sub 2 hours, but I am not a competent speedrunner. I just like to play games because they're fun.
You beat it a lot faster than me. It took me like 4 days. You beat it in 4 hours.
Well, I've also been playing it for almost 30 years. So.
Technically, I have too, just not to completion.
Right, yeah, I have.
So
I've probably finished that game more than almost any other game. Possibly more than any other game.
I have finished it once now.
Yay!
I did it!
Woo! Now you never have to touch it again.
Now I can just put it on a little CD rack and then fling it across the room and be done with it.
Perfect. But no, that was about it. It was fun though. We had some people watch us and chat with us, and so I might do it again at some point with some different game. I don't know if it'll be a game that I can finish in one sitting, but I was thinking about maybe digging into some of these. Dozens of old adventure JRPG games that I have not touched in years, and just sit down every now and then and open it up to everybody. I don't know if I'll plan on continuing to do Twitch or not because excuse me, because the delay is so bad, whereas Discord is so not bad.
You could just stream them straight to Discord,
Right.
although...
But then it doesn't record it, and people can't watch the VOD.
Yeah, that's kind of
that stuff. That's a bummer.
Yeah, we'll workshop it later.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Let's knock some news out.
Yeah.
First up, a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers, specifically a sealed variant with a cardboard hang tab inside of the cellophane, because this is the level we're at, folks. We are differentiating the different types of sealed Super Mario Brothers cartridges.
Did you read the detail about how they described that?
No. What?
Okay, so I had to read through several articles before I figured out what the fuck anybody was talking about. So the earliest NES games didn't have like a little plastic hang tab on the back. Part of the box itself would rip apart and be the hang tab, part of the back of the box. And
now, I thought the original games that were launched in a test market in New York did not have cellophane.
Correct.
They were circle sealed. Okay.
Exactly. And they're the ones that had this tab made
I was
out
just
of
making
the
fun of
cardboard.
the fact that this is how we differentiate it, and I'm like, well, actually, the originals,
Right.
Like I'm.
Apparently, at some point early on, after they stopped using those sticker seals and after they started using cellophane, but before they ran out of those earliest boxes, they would just cover those boxes in cellophane.
Okay, so that's why it's specifically a rare variant.
Right. That's what this one was. And how much
Well,
did it
it's
sell
sold at
for,
auction
Justin?
for $114,000 American dollars. Oh my God!
What are you going to
mean,
do with that?
Well, obviously, you're going to get it graded and put in a big slab of acrylic. And
Wasn't
you're
it
gonna
already
sell
in
it for
acrylic?
200. I don't know. Then you're going to wait 5 years and sell it at a profit.
Right?
I have no.
I don't get it.
I
don't get it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's collectibles, and I've talked a lot about collectibles and investors, and believe me, there are investors in collectible markets, and they are always looking for new collectible markets to sink money into untaxed assets.
But why the most common game on the system?
Because it sold for a lot.
Why?
Because it was a rare variant,
But why are they willing to pay so much for it? That's what I don't get. Because it's not the it's not the players that are driving that price.
But
up.
here's the thing: in the collector's market, someone paid $114,000, so it is now worth that much.
Right.
It wasn't worth that much before they paid it, but it is now, and now that value will go up in an untaxed asset that can be off the books. It's just this thing. It's just my thing I got hanging on my wall. It's They're
not going to hang it on their wall because they're not going to take it out of the cellophane to get to the hang tab.
I do like to imagine a guy just hammering a nail straight through the acrylic slab in the wall. I'm going to hang it! Looks great! Moving on, Sony patents PS1, PS2, and PS3 emulation via cloud streaming.
Which is weird.
Haven't they already been doing that?
That's why it's
with
weird.
PlayStation Now?
Because I'm pretty sure they already do all three of those on PS Now. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if PS1 games are on PS Now. And
yeah, they may not be.
And there's a chance that the PS3 games and PS2 games on PS Now are run via actual PS3 and PS4 hardware. So maybe that's what is different now, is that now it'll be emulation instead of actual hardware. Which is still stupid.
Nintendo's releasing a Lego NES console with matching little cute Lego CRT television for $250 American.
Yep.
It's cool.
Right.
It's very big.
Yeah.
It's very cute. It's full of Easter eggs. It's also a $250 NES. You could get an HDMI modded top loader and a PVM for $250 if you were really frugal and shopped around.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I'm not a Lego guy. I know we have some Lego guys in our Discord. This seems outrageously priced.
Legos are getting really expensive these days, though.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
I got a big tub of them. I should cash in when I'm going to retire.
I don't know if generic Legos are as expensive.
Well, mine are all the old medieval castles that I eventually busted down and put them in a big bucket.
I don't know what that is, so who knows? That could be expensive.
Well, you see, a long time ago, Saturn, they had these things called castles. They were made of stone. Atari is offering a, quote, more affordable Atari VCS 800 without controller for only $279.99 in the same year that the Polymega, the Xbox Series X, and the PlayStation 5 are releasing.
Right. That totally makes
affordable.
Sense. You would totally pay the price of a Nintendo Switch for an Atari VCS with no controller, right? That makes sense.
Definitely. Source code to Super Nintendo Doom made public.
Right.
So that's nice.
And the guy who made it, he did an interview at some point. I don't know if this was an old interview that I just read or if it was when the source code was released. But he had mentioned that he didn't actually have access to the Doom source code when he made the Super NES port. He was just making it while looking at the PC game and trying his best to make the Super NES able to do those things.
That's wild.
And he had to use a ton of tricks because he said the Super NES should not have been capable of running that game.
Yeah. Google signs exclusive Stadia deal with Harmonix, the company behind Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and Supermassive Games, the company behind Until Dawn.
Oh boy.
I could see Until Dawn coming to Stadia. I don't know how they're going to do Guitar Hero on Stadia, but
well, Harmonix doesn't own Guitar Hero anymore anyway. And
okay.
And they did say they're not doing a new Rock Band at the moment. They're going to keep putting out tracks on Rock Band 4, but not a new one.
Right.
So this will be some other rhythm game because that's all Harmonix does.
We'll see.
But when you think rhythm game, you think streaming internet service.
Definitely. New Switch system update also has Joy-Con firmware update with no public notes at this time.
It was probably stability.
I'm waiting for them because there are a lot of third-party Joy-Cons popping up out there. I'm waiting for them to start disabling those via updates.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just
not
waiting on it.
Surprised.
Nintendo removes the game Don't Get Caught from the eShop, a game where you wank in the back seat of a car while looking at bizarre pictures and attempt not to let anyone see you.
Did you look at the trailer for this?
No. Why would I look at the trailer for this?
It was straight up disturbing. Like, it was dark and creepy. Like, you're in the back seat of a car at night and the driver keeps like almost looking and then you look over and there's like this baby staring at you and it's just the creepiest shit. And all the pictures that the person was looking at, they looked like Polaroids, but they weren't like dirty things the person was looking at. It was like it was like actual pictures of like somebody playing basketball with long hair or just like really weird esoteric shit. And it was just really kind of dark and disturbing.
Yeah, that was yeah.
So I'm glad they pulled that.
So as am I. Car thieves create universal key fobs shaped like a Game Boy to prevent suspicion, and apparently it costs, I think, like $100,000 for one.
That's good.
Some insane amount of money that the whoever's making is charging for them.
For that amount of money, you can buy a lot of cars.
You could. Well, you could probably only buy like 4 reasonable cars.
Well, new cars, yeah, but I mean, if you're going for like 6-year-old cars, you could buy a lot.
100 grand, you could buy 100 of one of my cars that I bought back in the mid 2000s.
Perfect. You could buy 100 of that 94 Nissan Sentra I used to have.
Sony and Facebook both announced increase in VR headset production. Facebook I expected, Sony I did not. Interesting that the PSVR is still doing good. It kind of feels like you don't hear a lot about it.
It's pretty cheap, and also there are still new games coming out for it pretty regularly.
Yeah. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered will not feature local multiplayer, but will allow for multiplayer over the internet.
It's disappointing, but not at all surprising.
I'm upset about it. It's dumb. Honestly, we have the GameCube controller adapter. Why can't I plug my fucking Game Boy in to Crystal Chronicles Remastered? Square Enix.
It's also on other consoles. It's not just on Switch.
Well, my GameCube controller adapter is USB, so it should work. Reggie Fils-Aimé joins mobile publisher Rogue Games as strategic advisor as they move to begin publishing console and PC games. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Microsoft announces that xCloud will be included with Game Pass Ultimate, discontinues the Xbox One S All Digital Edition and Xbox One X, and discontinues selling new 12-month Xbox Live Gold memberships ahead of the Series X and rumored Series S launch.
That's a big change to their product portfolio there.
Oh, yeah. Right after shutting down Mixer, Microsoft is not scared to just be like, yank all this shit off, forget all that crap.
Right?
Here's the new thing. Let's move on.
I'm guessing that they're discontinuing the gold memberships because they want to move everybody into Game Pass Ultimate instead.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see.
That's what I'm guessing.
I can't see another reason for that.
And then finally, Untitled Goose Game getting a physical release on Switch and PS4 if you want to be a goose, but you also care about your consumer rights and want physical games.
I think it's in October is when they said it's
that particular intersection of people who's being catered to there. It's a small but vocal subset of Goose fans that demand physical games.
There are dozens of us.
Finally, we're getting to our topic at hand. This week, we're talking Final Fantasy, which is to say Final Fantasy 1, the first Final Fantasy, not all Final Fantasies.
Hold on. You're saying there's something called Final and there's more than one?
Yeah, I know. It seems weird. But they couldn't have called it Penultimate Fantasy and then they'd only be able to make 2.
Right.
So
that's a good point. Someday we'll get the prequel Penultimate Fantasy.
Yeah, what a worse name. As a synopsis, Final Fantasy is Square's early JRPG that started a long-running series that has really stretched the definition of the word final. I'm sure you've heard of at least some of them.
Yeah.
They still make them. New ones, numbered ones. They won't stop.
Yeah, everybody has heard of that great classic Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Yeah, that's the one.
Of course,
Final Fantasy Legend 3.
Yeah,
can't forget that one.
Final Fantasy Type 0.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. I bought that one.
Yeah, I have the Chapter 1 trial.
Yeah. Let's get some listener feedback knocked out because we got a lot for this one.
Yeah.
First up is Elk Neodafs, who says, 2019 was going to be my, quote, year of Final Fantasy. I would play through a different Final Fantasy game each month for the whole year. January went well. Replaying through the original Final Fantasy was a blast. February came, so it was time for Final Fantasy 2. Revisiting 2 was such a disappointment that it made me love the first game even more.
Nice.
Final Fantasy 2 completely knocked the wind out of my year of Final Fantasy. Such that I didn't even bother with it beyond that point. All that being said, the first game was an incredible experience, and honestly, it would be great to see the series return to a tech-free fantasy setting that the first game embraced.
I've tried to do that so many years where I was like, I'm going to play one Final Fantasy game every month this whole year, and every year I get to February or March.
Puffkit Side B says, Final Fantasy 1 on GBA was the first non-Pokemon JRPG I ever finished, and I've probably played it through more times than any other in the genre. It's a simple story, and gameplay made it relatively easy to get into the genre and go back to and replay. Rygar Starkong writes in, about 2 billion years ago, in about 2013, I had a failed video game blog, and I was extremely excited for the upcoming release of Final Fantasy 15. So I said to myself, wouldn't it be great if we played every single Final Fantasy game in preparation for Part 15? And so I started to play and screen cap as I went. I only made 4 entries because apparently I have the attention span of a squirrel that's been severely beaten by a rhubarb. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the Warriors of Light, and I've been thinking about going back and giving it another go. This may be the catalyst I need. Well, we'll only get you as far as the first game,
right?
I'm afraid. So
just play that one over and over again until you get to 15.
Super Ass Taco writes in, from the start, Square must have been doing something right with the Final Fantasy art because I distinctly remember my early imagination running wild with the enemy sprite work in Nintendo Power's dedicated strategy guide to FF1.
Right.
It was just one of the few cases where I didn't even own the game, but seeing the art alone was enough to evoke my own fantasy world.
Nice.
Raw Beat says, I remember when I was about 14 in 1998 and I had an awful job working for my uncle, and we were renovating an antique store next to a used record shop. I spotted a boxed copy of Final Fantasy 1 in the window for $40 Canadian, and my jaw hit the sidewalk.
Nice.
After my uncle refused to lend me the money, the owner, Crazy Bob, refused to put it on hold for me. I had to go home and get refused a ride down there from my mom. After a sleepless night, I collected my money and went to work the next day, overjoyed to see it still in the window. I went over as soon as the store opened and picked it up, and I still have the same copy to this day.
Nice.
IG Amazing Bob says, when you ask someone what their favorite Final Fantasy is, more than likely it'll be the first Final Fantasy they played and will nearly always be one of the first 10 games. Outside of the first 3, which were similar, each of the first 10 games were unique, critically acclaimed, and some of the best of their generation.
True story.
And finally, Tamachin87 writes in, I've never finished the first Final Fantasy. Growing up, we were a Sega household because the NES was ugly and stupid and didn't have Alex Kidd built into the system.
That's a good point.
Well, only one of those is true, I'm afraid. The only time I've played it was the fan-translated WonderSwan version on an emulator because that's what totally sane people do. It was pretty neat. It's on my huge list of to-finish games. I heard it has a sequel or two.
One or two, yeah.
Saturn, tell me release information for Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah, so it was developed and published by Square. The Japanese release was December 18th, 1987, the year after Dragon Quest. And the North American release was May of 1990.
As far as first encounters, I always knew about the game. I mean, who didn't after Final Fantasy VII? Everyone on Earth knew about Final Fantasy, and that there were 6 previous ones. Although, at the time, we had a hard time tracking down all of the previous 6.
Yes, it took a little bit.
But I didn't actually play it till the GBA version, and I really, really clicked with the GBA port. For some reason, I spent so many hours after school on the couch playing Dawn of Souls. It was, like our listener write in, I believe the first non-Pokemon RPG I ever completed.
Nice.
And it still holds a very special place in my heart. And every time I play it, I remember, because I would come in and we had a love seat in our kitchen. I don't remember why. We had one of those weird kitchens that had like an attached dining room, but the dining room was way bigger than you needed it to be. And so we had a TV in there because it's America, so we have a TV in the kitchen.
Right.
And we had a love seat in there, and I would sit on that love seat and watch The Simpsons every day after school for an hour and play Final Fantasy. Nice. And it's like some of my favorite gaming memories is sitting on that dumb little piece of crap couch watching the dumb little piece of crap kitchen TV and playing Final Fantasy.
I've never had a kitchen TV in my life.
What? Well, how do you watch TV when you're in the kitchen?
You just kind of crane your head around and hoping you make it to the living room.
See, that's a mistake. You gotta have a kitchen TV.
Every home I've lived in, the living room has been visible from the kitchen, so it wasn't ever a huge deal.
Okay, yeah. See, this one, it was not.
No, in our neighborhood, we had this sweet old lady that lived a few houses down from me. She was this little old grandmother who I felt was ancient when I was a little kid, and
yeah,
you know, she was always there, just the nice old lady in the neighborhood. And her grandson was this little rich asshole who would come to visit her once a year, at least once a year. And whenever he would come over to our house and he would bring like 20 or more NES games every time just to show us what all had come out since the last time we saw him.
Just to come Lucas you in your own home.
Exactly.
I have all of them.
Right. And one time when he came over, he happened to bring Final Fantasy with him. Among the many other games that he played. And at the time, I was like, no, put Mega Man 3 back in. That one looked much, much better. And then he moved back to Final Fantasy, and he was like, look at how huge and massive this world is. And I was like, look, I can see that your dude over there swung a sword, and somehow it hit a dude over on the other side of the screen, and they never even made contact, and there's a problem here. And at the time, I was not at all impressed. And it wasn't until... probably the next summer that I got around to actually playing it myself, and I got super, super hooked.
The idea of very young Saturn being very critical of basic tenets of JRPG design is just hilarious to me for some reason.
Yeah.
After just a little bit ago, you're like, I've played Trails of Cold Steel 4 times.
Just this year, yeah.
Then you're like, I saw a menu and I was like, reading.
Yeah, pretty much. That was me at that age.
Tell me about the development of Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah, so the director, Hironobu Sakaguchi, and the composer, Nobuo Uematsu, had worked together. Yeah, never heard of either of them. They're just a couple of no names. They had worked on other games at Square prior to this, like Rad Racer, for example. But this was the first time that the full Final Fantasy team was assembled. In addition to other Square staff, they brought in illustrator Yoshitaka Amano, who still designs the logo illustrations on games in the series to this day. I had read a story that may be apocryphal, so I didn't add it to the notes, but somebody said that they recommended to Sakaguchi that they use Amano's art in the game. And he said, I don't know who that is, and then pointed to a picture in a magazine and said, but I like this guy's art, and it was Amano's. So,
of course it was.
Right. There's been a rumor for pretty much as long as I think the internet has existed that said that Square was going bankrupt and that this game was their last chance at making any kind of a break.
Are you telling me that Snake, Rattle, and Roll did not make its money back?
I don't think that was Square.
Oh, yeah. Who was that?
I think that was Rare.
Oh, okay.
Might have been Rare.
Yeah, I think it was Rare.
But yeah, that has been refuted by several people from Square over the years. Some of them have tried to give some credence to it, so it is unknown if that is really what the case was like. However, I did find an interview with Nobuo Uematsu where he said that Sakaguchi said he was going to leave the game industry and go back to university if that game didn't sell well. So there's a chance that might be where that rumor came from.
Right.
Sakaguchi himself had been wanting to make an RPG. He was specifically influenced by Ultima and Wizardry, and he had been trying to pitch it at Square for, he said, several years at that point. And the executives at Square basically said that an RPG couldn't sell and wouldn't be profitable. And then Dragon Quest came out.
And Wizardry was huge over there. People loved Wizardry.
Yeah, and
I always see Ultima and Wizardry cited in JRPG design a lot. I feel like Wizardry was a lot bigger over there than Ultima was. I feel like the first couple Ultimas, people were like, these are really cool, but Wizardry was huge.
Oh, yeah. And also Wizardry was getting official localizations, and I want to say that either only the first or only a few Ultima games got localizations over there, and some of them were just like fan translations, or you had to play them in English or something like that. I could be wrong. I'm just going off of memory there. But one of the designers, Akitosha Kawazu, he worked on the battle system and the sequences, and he said he based it very heavily on D&D. I don't know if you could tell.
You certainly can in the first game.
Oh, yeah. The programmer was Iranian-American programmer Nasser Gabelli, who I think we've discussed on the Secret of Mana episode, probably.
Several times, yeah.
Yeah, he was responsible for coding the game, and he, of course, was brought back for several sequels. He coded a ton of stuff for Square back then. Yeah. He also included the sliding puzzle minigame without telling anyone until it was already implemented into the game. And if you have,
by the way, I put this thing in there.
Right? And if you haven't played Final Fantasy 1, there is a sliding puzzle minigame in there, and if you complete it, it gives you free items in the game.
Which that's not in the GBA port, is it?
It is.
If it is, it's hidden somewhere.
Yeah, it's hidden in the exact same way as the original. You go into a ship, you hold the B button, and you hit A 55 times.
I'm sorry, 55 times?
55 times. Actually, I think it was cut to 22 in the GBA port, but on the NES, it was 55.
Well, now I want to try it. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's just one of those little 15 sliding games where you have the 15 numbers and you slide them to go in order.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you do it in under 2 minutes or something, you get a Phoenix down and 10,000 gil.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a little neat thing. In a 2015 interview, Sakaguchi said he'd come up with the initials FF before coming up with the title. And his first idea for the game was Fighting Fantasy, but there was already a tabletop game with that name.
There is a successful series of solo role-playing books. They were made by Steve Jackson of the same name from the early 80s.
Yeah, so he got shot down on that.
Warlock of Firetop Mountain being one of the most, the one that people would know about if they knew about him.
Nice.
I have a copy,
Just throwing it out there. But yeah, that was his first idea, and obviously that was shot down because it was already taken. And then apparently they were getting close to release, and somebody just threw out the name Final Fantasy, so they were like, done, that's it. That's the name now, we're going with it. And and in that same interview, Sakaguchi said, any word that started with F would have been fine.
Fuck.
Good old fuck fantasy.
Well, it's got to be fuck fantasy now. We're going to have to change a lot of the dialogue.
We're going to start a game of farting fantasy. There's so many good things they could have chosen. Anyway, Nintendo licensed the game for the Western release in 1990, hoping to help RPGs catch on in the West like they had in Japan, just like they did with Dragon Quest the year before. They did devote an entire episode or issue of Nintendo Power, issue 17, to covering the game in depth. It was one of their first 4 strategy guides before they published them separately. And it did sell pretty well in America, not as gangbusters as it did in Japan, but it definitely made an impact, and there's a chance Nintendo Power helped.
Let's talk gameplay. There are it is technically one of the job system games.
Yeah.
You do get there's 6 jobs, and they are fighter, black belt, thief, white mage, black mage, and red mage.
Right.
And we're not going to go into super detail on each of them
No.
because if you've played a video game, you know these classes, even if you've not played a Final Fantasy game, because they're kind of standard classes.
Even if you've only played pen and paper RPGs, you probably kind of know these classes.
Yeah. So first up, you have your fighter, which is the basic tank class, high defense and attack power, high HP, uses heavy weapons and armor, evolves into the knight, and when evolved into the knight, can also use the basic white magic up to level 3.
Yeah.
You have the monk, which is called the black belt in the NES translation, who is the physical fighter with lots of HP but lower defense than the fighter class, can hit multiple times per attack with very high damage outputs, your DPS character.
Right.
And apparently there's a glitch in the NES version that I was unaware of.
Oh, yeah.
So
this is a very famous glitch. So the character's strength grows at a weird rate, and because of it, very early in the game, I think it's after level 8 or 9, something like that, his damage becomes significantly higher if he's unarmed than if he has any weapon in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just leave him unarmed from that point forward, he'll usually do about 4 to 10 times as much damage as any other character in your party.
Which that makes sense for a monk, you know.
Yeah.
Logically.
Right.
They change into the master, which is basically the same, but with lower magic defense because
sure,
reasons.
There had to be some change, right?
You have the thief, which is another physical fighter, obviously faster than the fighter, but cannot use the heavy weapons and armor. Also has lower HP than knights or masters, and can be lower than white wizards.
Oh, yeah.
Evolves into the ninja, which has a high attack power and can learn some basic black magic up to level 4.
Right.
You have the white mage, who's your healer, because of course it is, and can easily end up with more HP than a ninja, but cannot use all the weapons and armor that a ninja can. Attack spells only target undead.
Yep.
And evolves into the white wizard that can use a few more weapons and the remaining healing spells that a white mage cannot, as well as holy, which attacks all enemies.
Right.
And then you have the black mage, which is your glass cannon DPS character who can use attack magic with very low HP and defense. And like the white mage, very little weapons and armor, turns into the black wizard and can use even more black magic, as well as the cat claw for physical damage.
Right.
And then finally you have the red mage, who is the kind of jack of all trades character. Can use some white magic and some black magic. Weapons similar to a thief, as well as armor. And they're very, very, very good early game and mid game. And then they drop off whenever all of a sudden you can't use the most powerful weapons and spells in the game because they can't do that.
Right.
And they do evolve into the red wizard, which can use more white and black magic, but still never gets the level 8 white and black magic.
Right.
And so you're just kind of screwed out of the best spells on the game.
And also there's a lot of spells that the red mage just can't learn for some reason that are just prohibited from red mages.
Right. As is traditional in JRPGs, you have random encounters. They reward you with experience and the currency, which is gil, that you can use to buy items, weapons, armor, magic, and then you just kind of lather, rinse, repeat.
Right.
Basically, the cycle we are all familiar with.
For the next 30 hours.
And Saturn, tell me about the magic system, because this is still kind of unique to Final Fantasy 1, even specifically the NES version.
Right. So there's 8 levels of magic, and in each level of magic there is 4 white magic and 4 black magic spells. But each mage character, or any character that can use any kind of magic, can only learn up to 3 spells of each level. So a white mage can choose 3 white magic spells. A black mage can choose 3 black magic spells. A red mage has to split the difference and might pick 1 white magic and 2 black magic, or vice versa, or just go all one or the other. And instead of having a general MP pool, you get MP per level. So at the beginning of the game, you have 2 MP of level 1, which means you can cast 2 level 1 spells. And then after...
And this specifically is the part very much taken from D&D, where in D&D you get spell slots. You're like, okay, I can cast this many first level spells, this many second level spells, this many third level spells. And this was replaced in the GBA port with a regular...
Exactly.
The way we expect
the more
video
modern
game spells to work.
Final Fantasy magic system.
Which is you have all your spells in one big giant MP pool, and they all cost a specific number.
Right. Yeah, they still had it broken down per level. And by the end of the game, even if you were near max level, you'd be hard pressed to cast more than 2 or 3 of level 8 magic without having to heal up again.
Right.
But you'd probably max out at 9 casts of the early levels. So you could spam those quite a bit.
Now, in some ways, it does kind of make it easier to know what you have available, because when I play a JRPG, one thing I struggle with is like conserving my magic,
right?
Because I'm not, I'm not in my head thinking about each individual spell's MP cost,
right?
And so it does kind of make it easier to keep track, but again, at the same time, like you said, it sort of hamstrings you later on because there's this artificial limit where it's like you can just only do so many of them no matter what.
Right, and also in Final Fantasy 1, there was no ether. There was no way to restore your MP without going to sleep somewhere. And you couldn't sleep in a dungeon anywhere. So you had to go either back to the world map and use an item to sleep, or go back to a town and use an inn. And especially in the later dungeons where they're quite long, that meant that throughout this long dungeon where you might encounter 50 or more battles, you have 3 casts of Holy total. And if you use one, then you can't use your curative magic or your Life 2 spell.
Which is to say, and we'll get more into this later, that the NES version is probably significantly harder, I'd say, than the GBA version.
Definitely, yeah.
Or the PSP, whatever modern version of the game. Right. We'll get into the differences later.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you can only save whenever you're in a safe spot, an inn, or a tent, or cabin, or a house on the overworld.
Yeah, there is no save option on the menu on the NES version. You have to use a tent or house or cabin to save. So if you run out of tents and you are not near a town, you cannot save. You do not have that option.
And then that was another thing fixed in the later ports where you can just save
pretty much anywhere.
You still can only sleep or use a tent in the overworld, but you could save wherever you want in the overworld or in a town.
Right.
And then, like most early JRPGs, it doesn't have smart targeting, so if a targeted enemy dies before an attack is triggered, the character wastes that turn and nothing happens.
Right. Which is such a giant annoying pain in the ass.
Yeah, so it makes grinding especially hard in games that don't have this smart targeting.
Right.
So that if you just mash the A button, one character of the opposing force will die, no matter what you do, because everyone's targeted the same character. Right. And once it's dead, the next person has no one to target.
Which, if there's only one enemy, is great.
Yeah, then it's fantastic. Yeah. And because I just recently played Golden Sun, which was a much later game and also did not have smart targeting.
So weird.
I know, what a strange thing. I mean, even Dragon Quest has had it since what? Dragon Quest 4?
5.
5 was the one that added it.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 3 had it on NES.
Yeah, like it's now in Golden Sun, at the very least, if your target dies, that you automatically defend, which is nicer than nothing.
It's better than attacking the air and getting very confused at it.
Weapons and armor do not go into the generic item bag. They are instead stored in a separate weapon inventory.
Yep.
And each character has 4 weapon and 4 armor inventory slots for storage or equipping items.
That's such a giant pain in the ass. Because, one, like, if your character has a helmet and a shield and some armor, that gives them 1 free spot. So if you are going through a dungeon and there is, like, 9 chests that all have armor in it, you're not going to be able to carry them all. You're going to have to throw some shit away. Whereas the weapon inventory, which has 4 per character, you have plenty of room there because you can only hold 1 weapon. So having 3 extra spots for every character seems luxurious. Whereas in the armor pool, you're constantly cramped, hoping to not overload yourself.
And that can be really problematic in a game like Final Fantasy 1 because this game is really big into very specific items. That do very specific things, like, oh, here's your ice armor and your fire shield that you want to equip when you're in areas that have certain enemies of certain types.
Yep, and once you get that heal shield, you want to keep it on somebody all the time just so that they can have a free heal spell to use whenever.
And I don't know if it's true of the NES one because I played the GBA one, but there are a lot of items that have uses in battle that you want to keep on your character.
Right, yeah. There's a ton of weapons and armor that have in-battle uses that you want to keep on you, but you
Which
are
makes me wonder if that's why they
inventory.
limited it, because
Maybe.
they thought it'd be too easy. Which I don't know. It's just a weird limitation.
Right.
And unlike most video game RPGs of the time, the player characters are also shown on screen during battle, which sounds super simple by today's standards, but most games didn't do that. Most games were this first-person affair.
Yeah.
And you had animations, so when you attacked, there was your dude would kind of jump out and wiggle their arm a little bit, and then the enemy would, wiggle around a little bit, which it's quaint by today's standards.
I remember being super impressed back in the day because there was different spell animations for each spell, and I remember pointing it out to my mother when we were playing it the first time we were playing through it. And I was like, look how cool it is that there's like a different animation for fire and for ice. And she said, that's the same animation, but different colors. And once she said that, it completely shattered it in my mind.
You were just ruined.
Yeah. Like every time I would see it, I'd be like, that's not ice. That's just blue fire.
Oh,
I know better, game.
Saturn, tell me about the very complex and detailed plot of Final Fantasy 1.
All right, sit down. We're going to be here for a while. So there are the 4 prophesied heroes, and they appear near Corneria. They're the heroes of light.
Yep.
And they each come bearing an orb, which has since been retconned into a crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And
it could be an orb made of crystal.
It could be, but it's not anymore. Now it's all a stylized shape, like later
crystal
Final
shape.
Fantasy
The way you expect a video game crystal to be
right,
shaped.
Exactly. As a test of character, the king of Corneria tasks the heroes with saving his daughter, Princess Sarah, from a former Cornerian knight named Garland, who has kidnapped her and taken her to the Temple of Fiends, which later translations called the Chaos Shrine.
Yep.
And upon completing this task, the king recognizes their merit, and the princess gives them a lute handed down for many generations. And then you travel the world, and you just go and help people, and you defeat the 4 elemental fiends and restore the power to the crystals. And once you've done that, you're told to go back to the Temple of Fiends from the beginning of the game, where you use the lute that was given to you by Sarah back at the beginning of the game to open a path that takes you back in time 2,000 years, because you learn that the 4 elemental fiends had given Garland power and dragged him back in time 2,000 years, where he absorbed their power and transformed into their Lord Chaos, forming a perfect time loop. But the heroes go back in time and defeat Chaos and then return to the present.
Now, I'll say this. Compared to the stories of contemporary RPGs, like Dragon Quest.
Right.
At least the first Dragon Quest.
Right.
This is an intensely more complex and interesting story.
With a plot twist.
Yeah, and I did not know the plot twist when I played the GBA version. I knew nothing about the story, and when I reached the end, and I was like, "Oh my god, the final boss is the first boss!" Like it blew my mind.
Right,
that was the coolest shit ever. Yeah. Even in 2003, when I was playing it, that was awesome.
Right,
so it does have a relatively.
Now
there's not much story there, but the actual story beats are interesting, and you're like, oh wow, really? Like it's got some cool stuff in it.
Now another thing is, in the more modern versions, at least since the GBA, possibly since the WonderSwan and PlayStation, at the very beginning of the game, the first time you go into Corneria, it forces you to talk to the king afterwards. Like there are guards at every exit to the town that force you to go to the king.
Yeah.
That's not the case in the NES version. You can ignore the castle altogether and just not even know that you can go there. Until you save Sarah. And when you talk to her, she teleports you to the castle throne room, which is a place you may never have been to before. And once the king thanks you and tells you that he is going to order his men to build the bridge, you can peace out and continue the rest of the game and get near finishing the entire game and get to the Temple of Fiends and have no idea what the fuck to do, because you never talked to Sarah and she never gave you a loot. And that happened to me the first time I played it. And I had no idea what was going on or where I was supposed to find a loot or what the fuck was happening.
Now, I do wonder, because I remember wondering this when I first played the game. Because I knew it was a port of an NES game, obviously. And I played a lot of NES, and I knew that NES games were usually just a couple hours long. I mean, they were really hard, But like if you could actually get through them, they weren't very long.
Yeah, some NES
Mostly.
games.
Some were tremendously long, but the majority of them were like, if you're actually good at the game, it's kind of pretty short,
kind of arcadey.
And I remember wondering if, because it might just be my perception. So if it is, just be like, you're dumb. No one thought that. That's stupid. That's fine. But I did kind of wonder if they presented it the way they did in the beginning, because it's like this little mini quest on this little mini island, and you save a princess and you come back home. And then they're like, well, actually, this whole game's going to open up now.
Right.
And there's many more hours of adventure. And it kind of makes it seem like they were sort of trying to present it like, well, here's the whole game. They took the princess, you go save her from the dungeon, then the game's over.
Right.
And then they're like, actually, no!
I can't say that I personally remembered feeling that, but I also knew how much was coming because Nintendo Power and having seen somebody else play it.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to that. I can say that it definitely felt like this was the introduction to the game. That first time you cross the bridge and it plays the main theme to Final Fantasy for the first time in the series that has since been played in every fucking game in the series since then. Yeah. It did feel like an incredibly grandiose moment that could have felt like a finale or a ending credits, but instead it was opening credits.
Yeah. It just has a very solid prologue for a game of this era.
Oh, yeah.
You know, again, especially because the most direct comparison I can make is Dragon Quest, which is like, we'll go.
Yeah, it just throws you into the world and it's like,
go save the princess.
You don't got to save the princess in Dragon Quest. That's optional.
Go find the princess and then maybe leave her there. I don't know. And then that's the game.
Just defeat the Dragon Lord. How do I do that? Fucking do it.
You go stab him with your sword. Tell me about the presentation of specifically the NES version.
So graphically, it did look pretty solid for an NES game of its era. The battle system, though, was especially overwhelmed with text boxes that would just pop up over one another. If you've not seen video footage or have played the NES Final Fantasy 1, it can look like a nightmare if you are not ready to just be inundated with information. Because for some reason they felt the need to put every character's name and hit points in a separate box that has borders on all four sides. And then the name of the enemy is in a separate box. And then your name is in a separate box. And then the attack that you did to them is in a separate box. The amount of damage that did is in a separate box. Whether or not that killed them is in a separate box. And it's all just like popping up one after another and then pausing for a second. And then it repeats for the next action.
Saturn, this was the Windows 3.1 design. We were just excited to have all these windows.
Yeah. It was. It's a little overwhelming, especially considering I'd already played some of Dragon Quest 1 at this point. I was like, there's an easier way to do all of this.
Right.
You can streamline this very well, and they finally did. But it took them until Final Fantasy 3 before they figured it out.
Yeah.
However, the in-battle animations for the characters and the attacks and spells did set the game apart from its contemporaries. Amano's character and enemy design is very highly regarded, and the translation of Amano's art into 8-bit sprites is occasionally very impressive, especially with some of the enemies look great on the NES. Some of that 8-bit sprite art for those enemies still holds up today, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, Uematsu's music compositions for the game were incredibly praised and are still praised, and several of them are still being remixed into current Final Fantasy games. The main theme and the opening prologue theme have been used in almost every game in the franchise at this point. I believe the main theme has been in every single game in the franchise. But,
I'm sure.
But yeah, it's held up pretty well, aside from all of the boxes in battle.
So let's get to remakes and re-releases, because there's been a lot. I will let you talk about the first one here, because I know nothing about the MSX port.
Yeah, so it was ported to the MSX, or the MSX2 anyway, in 1989. And for those who don't remember, that was a system that Sony and Microsoft worked together on back before they were mortal enemies. And while it was better than the MSX port of Dragon Quest, but it still has the MSX's problem of really poor scrolling. So when you're on the overworld, it constantly feels like it's being redrawn every step that you take. The in-battle graphics look great, and they look touched up, and there's more color, and there's more shading. And the remix soundtrack is neat, but I wouldn't say it's anything new. It's basically just a straight port.
Okay. Just with bad scrolling.
Yes, with horrible scrolling. And also horrible load times, too.
Apparently, there was also a 2-game Famicom cartridge released in 1994 with very, very minor graphical upgrades. That was Final Fantasy 1 and 2.
Right.
Basically, your proto Dawn of Souls.
Right. And let's not forget that 1994 is the year the PlayStation released.
Yeah, it was. And also, the Famicom came out in 83 in Japan.
83.
This is 11 years after the system came out.
And that particular cart was... one of those games that emulators have had a hard time playing for a very long time. It was only recently I ever saw an emulator that could actually get into either game on that cart.
Mm-hmm. Then you have the first real remake, which was on the WonderSwan Color in December 2000, 13 years after the game's original release, and included completely redrawn graphics and a remixed soundtrack. Inventory system and menus were redone to look more like modern Final Fantasy, because obviously there had been many since then. Difficulty was rebalanced. Quick saving was now possible anywhere on the world map without the need for a tent, and many quality of life improvements were implemented. New music was composed by Uematsu that would be included in this and future remakes, and a partial fan translation is available if you have a WonderSwan Color
or an emulator.
Then you can play it. And the WonderSwan got several Final Fantasy games. Didn't it? Got this. It got Final Fantasy 4.
1, 2, and 4.
Yep.
And plus a Chocobo Dungeon game.
Yeah. It was ported to the PlayStation in 2002 and was bundled with a port of Final Fantasy 2 outside of Japan as Final Fantasy Origins. It includes all the WonderSwan upgrades as well as more detailed graphics and a remixed soundtrack, and includes a new easy mode that allows for faster leveling, cheaper items in shops, and higher maximum MP per magic level. So at this point, they had both remakes had kept the original magic system.
Right. Yeah, but in the easy mode on PS1, you could have up to 99 casts per level, which makes the game so easy.
Yeah. And then they were ported to the GBA. Final Fantasy 1 and 2 were as Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls, which was based on the graphics and music from the WonderSwan and PS1, but heavily reworked. Difficulty is closer to the easy mode on PlayStation. Spell levels have been ditched in favor of, again, a traditional MP system, although you are still restricted to 3 spells per level. And new items like Phoenix Downs and other healing items have been introduced. Saving is now available anywhere outside of battle. You can save in the dungeon. I implied earlier that you could not save in dungeons, and that was incorrect. You can save in the dungeons.
Yeah, anywhere on GBA.
I did a bunch. And 4 new bonus dungeons were added, featuring bosses from Final Fantasies 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Those new healing items really make the game very different.
Because again, I've never played the NES version. I've always played Dawn of Souls, and I always wondered why the hell they had these churches to resurrect at. And I was like, well, you just get Phoenix Downs. I mean,
there were no Phoenix Downs in the original. There was no Phoenix Down. There was no Ether. There was no High Potion. All you could get was the basic potion, the pure item, which was your antidote. And I feel like that's it. There were soft potions to cure stone. And I think that might be it. It was either 3 or 4 total potions in the entire game. And if you wanted to buy more than one at once, you just had to hammer on the button with either with a turbo controller or just sit there for a while. So it was antiquated.
It was ported to mobile phones in 2004, seemingly based on the WonderSwan release, so a little bit of a backtrack features-wise.
And Namco released that one in North America, I want to say in 2009. So this was well after the other more upgraded ports, and I want to say it was only available on Verizon for select flip phones.
It was ported to the PSP in 2007, which with much higher resolution graphics and sound, but otherwise largely based on the GBA version, includes an additional bonus dungeon with a new super boss. Now, the PSP port keeps the original magic system, does it not?
No, it's identical to the GBA version in every other way except for the new dungeon.
I don't know why I thought it was the old one. And then it was ported to modern smartphones in 2010 based on the PSP version, but very buggy and removed all bonus dungeons, which seems like it would be more work to do. And the Android version also removed the sliding puzzle that had been in all prior releases.
And I was so sad about that the first time I played it on my Android phone, and I got into my boat, and I got to the ocean, and I was like, all right, I'm going to play fucking sliding puzzle now. That's what I buy Final Fantasy for. And I looked up online, I was like, how to do it, and I found some website, I was like, how to do it on iOS, and I was like, perfect, that's it. And nothing was happening, and I spent like an hour trying to do it before I found some website that was like, but it was removed from the Android release.
Why?
Like, why would you do that? Who does
tell
that
me about
benefit?
reception for
So
Final Fantasy 1.
The original Famicom version sold 520,000 copies.
Holy shit.
The MSX2 port sold nearly 100,000 of those. An additional nearly 100,000. EGM reported the NES version in North America sold 700,000 copies.
That's ludicrous for an NES RPG.
Right. In March 2003, just before the Western release of the PS1 remake, Square Enix, or still Square at the time, they weren't Square Enix until the next month, Square reported that 1.99 million copies of the game had sold across all platforms, including 1.21 million in Japan alone. So at that point, only the NES version had been released outside of Japan, so the remaining 0.78 million must have been here in the US.
Yeah.
IGN called it the 11th best NES game. Games Radar called it the 8th best NES game.
Which is it?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Retro Gamer ranked it as the 93rd best retro game. I don't know what their time frame was.
Stipulation on retro is, yeah.
Right. The game ranked 63rd in Famitsu's top 100 games list in 2006. Nintendo Power ranked it 49th in the top 200 in 2006. And 19th best NES game in 2008. In 87, Famitsu gave it a 34 out of 40, but also called it just one of many games that imitated Dragon Quest.
Man, that's some rough criticism.
At the time, 34 out of 40 from Famitsu was considered a very high score.
Right, but I have to say, Final Fantasy is so much better than Dragon Quest.
Well, Dragon Quest 1, but Dragon Quest 2 was already out by then.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. I'm always thinking of the first Dragon Quest.
Right.
As far as Legacy, that's basically its own episode. There's been a lot. They still make them. They're still out there, folks. You go buy them. For recommendations, I have a hard time not recommending the GBA version. I have a lot of love for that port. I think it's still a great game, and I think it's the version you should all go play.
Yeah, I would say anything since GBA is probably fine, except for Android. Just because it doesn't have the sliding puzzle, and that's why else would you play Final Fantasy 1?
Yeah.
No, GBA is great. PSP is great. If you want to see the original and have some quality of life improvements, I would go with the PS1 version. The NES version is playable, but it's pretty clunky by today's standards. So
I've also heard that the NES version is very broken in many ways.
it is pretty broken in many ways. Like the evade stat doesn't do anything, but there's still two spells to enhance it.
Yeah, so there's some weird things like that you run into.
Really, the first 6 Final Fantasies have some weird broken quirks like that if you look hard enough.
I've attempted the original a couple times. I can't handle it at all. So I've just almost instantly given up.
Right. It's better if you set the text speed to 9, though. That makes it a much better game.
But I think really as much as we've deviated from Final Fantasy 1, I do think it's still a good game. For many years, I maintained that Dawn of Souls Final Fantasy 1 was my favorite game in the franchise. I'm not sure I still maintain that after having played the majority of the games in the franchise at this point, but it's still just sometimes I just want to play a simple RPG.
Right.
You know, I just want to gain levels and have classes and go buy items and fight monsters, and I don't want to have to worry about complicated systems or crafting or collecting anything or whatever. And as far as just being a darn fun basic RPG, it still is that, and it's a great time.
Yeah, one thing I realized we forgot to mention is that they had to change the art for one enemy between Japan and America because it blatantly ripped off Dungeons and Dragons. Because they had a beholder enemy that guards the float stone in the ice cave, and in Japan they just straight up used D&D's art for it.
Yeah,
and
that's okay. D&D stole most of their art for a long time, so it's.
But yeah, all the Western version and all versions since then have replaced it with a more generic Final Fantasy monster.
Yeah. We had a discussion in the Discord a little while back. I don't remember who it was, but someone was saying, hey, I just played through Dragon Quest 1, and it was just a fun, short, simple RPG. Right. And he was saying, hey, are there other just kind of fun, short, not 30-plus hour RPGs out there? And I don't know why Final Fantasy 1 didn't occur to me at the time, but if that's something you're after, this, you're like, hey, I want to play a JRPG, but something's coming out in a week I want to play, and I just want to kill a few days with it. I think it's still a great time. I still very much enjoyed my time with it. Playing
the NES version might take more than 30 hours.
NES version might, but the GBA version, or really any of the more modern ports, I think they're just a great time. Yeah. They're fun.
Yeah, and it's not my favorite game in the series, but it is one I go back to pretty regularly. So there's definitely something about it that keeps me going back.
And I do feel like it's just the simplicity. So many RPGs have been built on it that you kind of know what to expect going into it no matter what. But at the same time, it avoids that common pitfall of being too simple and being too, well, at least the GBA version doesn't feel too dated.
What's funny is back when it came out, when the first one was out on NES, I remember trying so hard to pitch it to some of my friends, and their reaction was, that game looks way too complicated. And now we're sitting here 30 years later saying, if you want a really simple game, this is the one
I've been playing some very complicated games lately. It's simple, all right?
In comparison.
Anyway, that's Final Fantasy 1. You should play it. Yeah. It's a good game. It's still a good game. Yes. It still holds up.
Definitely.
And if you, like so many of our people writing in and like Saturn, want to play through every Final Fantasy game, then you're going to have to start there.
Yeah, it's a good place to start.
Enjoy it. It gets worse before it gets better. Final Fantasy 2 is not a great time.
If you really want to play the NES game and have a really easy time at it, just 4 black belts.
Oh, is that it, though? Just 4 black belts, no weapons?
Yeah, no weapons. Buy a shit ton of healing potions every time you're in town, and then just fucking go at it. By the time you've passed the second or third town, you'll just be a fucking murder force.
Yeah. I do remember playing it and being confused that the thief could not steal.
That's true.
And I was like, why can the thief not steal? Because I had, again, I had come to expect.
He's not a thief so much as a ninja in training.
There you go. Anyway, that's our show. If you'd like to support the show, then you can rate and review us on your podcast aggregator of choice. It makes a big difference. You can also financially support the show over at patreon.com/Retro Warriors if we provide value to your day or your commute or your work day or your mowing the lawn time. If we provide value to you, then that's a great way to show your appreciation.
Indeed.
Also, come hang out with us in Discord. There should be a link, hopefully, in the show description, and you can come chat us up there.
Right.
It is a very active community.
Oh, yeah. And there's been more and more people joining lately, which is great.
It's been great. It kind of seems like every Monday we get a few people when the show goes out, so it's doing its job, and we have a good time.
Yeah.
Anyway, do stay tuned after the ending theme, because we're going to have our producer Guy on the show to talk about, I don't know, whatever he thought about while we were recording the show.
Could be anything.
It could be anything. Exactly right. Anyway, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. And as always, let us cling together. Our producer Guy is here.
Yay!
All right, yay! Hi, Guy.
How are y'all?
We're okay. Well, I spoke for both of us. Please don't talk directly to Saturn. I'll answer for him.
Right.
Saturn is fine. How are you?
So Saturn is a 18th century lady.
Yeah, you finally deciphered it.
Damn.
What do you got for us this month?
Let's see what. My first note here just says, no. At worst, I say something ridiculous and let the chips fall where they may. That's my backup plan at all times.
Nice.
I like how much of that you wrote out, and none of it explains what it pertains to whatsoever.
This segment.
This segment, it is what it pertains to. You're right. It didn't. I realized that while I was reading it and trying to remember what it pertained to.
I just like to imagine you writing notes as we're doing the show.
Well, my second line says, also, I take notes during the show we're recording. So there.
Boom.
Including the one that says,
are those your only two notes?
On YouTube in audio format right now.
Oh, yeah, I do keep forgetting to mention that. Our shows are on YouTube in audio format right now. Yeah.
How could anybody have learned that?
If you go to youtube.com, it's a website,
right,
and you can search Retro Warriors Podcast, because I don't think we have a named slug yet. Then it's on YouTube.
Yay.
I said the words.
There you go. I know we have had a couple of people say, hey, I had a friend who wanted to check out your show, and he said, where's the YouTube link? And we said, yeah. And so apparently people...
And the answer was, why would you want a YouTube link? Yeah.
And so we figured, hey, why not? And we have just a simple little video loop of the logo doing its thing, and you can listen to us.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm so excited to be back on YouTube. We used to do video shows.
Yeah,
actually,
a long time ago.
We used to do video shows for patrons, and I think they're all still on YouTube. We should just make those public, because then we can have a bunch of old videos of us.
Old stuff.
Looking like doofuses in our old houses.
And then people will know why you stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I stopped doing it because we did the video version and recorded it with my iPhone.
Yeah.
And my iPhone would almost catch on fire recording 2 solid hours of video.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because it felt silly to buy like a nice camera for it, because we weren't a YouTube show,
right,
but at the same time, it was more trouble than it was worth, and very few people watched them. But they're out there, private. So I should reveal those.
Unprivate them.
Yeah, unprivate them. That's the verb I'm looking for.
That's the wordage.
Deprivate is an entirely different thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, that's.
All right. I know this next one pertains to the conversation you were having about how Pokemon was cool and then lame and then cool again.
Yeah.
That's not how I phrased it, but okay.
That's pretty much how you
phrased
it.
No, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I was thinking I thought you were referring to when I was talking about the features in the game.
Oh, no.
You mean
popularity
cool
in your lifetime.
Right. Exactly right. Yes, that is exactly what I said.
And then Saturn was like, no, I was too old for it. What are you talking about?
Right.
This is, as a man who has always liked kid things, I loved Pokemon. Yeah. But also, it was a me and Pablo thing, like Power Rangers. I was way too old to be into Power Rangers.
Yeah. As the youngest kid, I didn't have a younger kid to try to mentor or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated Pokemon when it came out. I was like, this is a neat new franchise and property that Nintendo has put out, and I'll try to learn about it. And I actually learned the names of most of the original Pokemon in Red and Blue, and was like, I'll get around to playing this. And then my mom stole all my cartridges and played them incessantly until she caught them all. And then I just had no drive to play it anymore, so I never got around to it.
I always forget this, but I was very, very heavily invested in Pokemon, and I feel like my brother didn't really. My brother is still like full-on Pokemaniac level Pokemon player, hardcore Pokemon player.
Right.
And I feel like he didn't really get that way until Gen 3, which Gen 3 is when they added a lot of the hidden stats, and they really beefed it up as far as like being like a competitive, deep system.
Right.
And I think so he was jumping in and really going ham on it right about the time I was exiting because it was a dumb baby game for babies.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's sad. Your ships passing in the night.
I remember there was that era where I was like, no. And really I was like that about most Nintendo games. I was like, no, that's for dumb babies. It's got colors in it. Because I know we make fun of people that like, won't play a game because it has Kirby or something pink in it, or it's easy or whatever
that was
dumb
you.
reason. it was, I'll say this, when you're like a 14, 15-year-old kid and you're kind of trying to find your place in the world, there's a lot of
external
specifically
pressure on that.
specifically when you're a young boy, there is a lot of social pressure of like, no, these are things that boys like and these are things that boys don't, or I should say men, because of course at that point you're wanting to become a man, and there's a lot of weird societal pressure and things going on there. So yeah, there was that era where I was like, no, Kirby's dumb because he's a puffy pink little ball.
But between my family and my friends, there were very few like super pro masculinity voices in my life at that time, and most of the people I knew were like, it doesn't matter, you can be a guy and like whatever the fuck you want, wear pink, I don't care. So I was very much a proponent when I was what should have been that perfect age for that. I was like, I really want us all to hardcore play this puzzle game with a talking dinosaur and a cute penguin.
Yeah. I was also a teenager in the early 2000s, which was very much this weird, like everything had to be dark and edgy again.
That's true.
Like that. Movies, everything, and I feel like it all kind of started with like not The Matrix, but that era of movies.
Yeah, I feel like that kicked it off.
Where suddenly everything is like black, full-length latex trench coats. Every movie is like solid gray on gray on gray. Like everything was dark and gritty and edgy. And because I was a teenager and that's what was popular at the time, I do feel like maybe that's why I leaned harder into it,
possibly,
than maybe you guys being a little bit older than me would have. You were probably old enough to be like, that's dumb, and just ignore it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I handled it. Actually, I had a lot of friends who were super into it, so it was hard to ignore it, but I tried my best.
Dude, one of my college roommates had like a long trench coat and like no.
Everyone I knew had long dusters outside of high school. Like we all bought giant black dusters. Like they were cheapy dusters. They weren't like high quality or big brand or whatever. But I would be wearing that, and then underneath it I would have like a t-shirt with 8-bit Final Fantasy Mage on it. So it's not like I was looking like a badass by any means.
I just love the image of you in a full-length duster with a Final Fantasy shirt on under it. That's a special.
That's 2002 Saturn
special
right there.
Kind
that's what that was.
Special kind of outfit.
It was a shirt from Cafe Press for 8-bit theater.
Oh gosh, of course it was. I read so much 8-bit theater. Oh man,
dude, 8-bit
I didn't discover it till
awesome.
Right?
I didn't discover it till it was like almost done. So I got to read years of it. I was ecstatic. I was a voracious webcomic reader. I read all of them over and over and over and over again.
If I remember right, it was a sprite of Black Mage casting a spell with like a little quote bubble that said Hadoken or something.
Yeah. I feel like I remember that shirt.
Yeah. And because it was Cafe Press, it got super faded in like half a month.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it was a thing going on in the world, and then I feel like, and this could just be me projecting, but I feel like that kind of aesthetic was coming in, and then 9/11 happened,
right? And
it kind of sobered everyone up, and then all of a sudden, all of our media was dark and serious or military, like that was all of it all the time. And so, it was this thing where I was like, Pokemon's dumb. I like Black Hawk Down, And now I'm 30 and I'm like, I don't want to watch Black Hawk Down. I want to go play Pokemon. Right. Like this. So it was. I think it was just partially a cultural thing, partially an age thing.
Yeah,
I do remember. I'm just totally gonna railroad your whole segment, guys. I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's the Justin Reminisces hour.
I do remember I had this friend, my best friend, when I was in elementary school. His name was, I had two best friends, but I had a best friend. His name was Jason. And
are you trying to not piss off your other best friend who's listening?
He might be. I mean, it's true. I did have two. I mean, you're a kid. You had two best friends. And Jason was one of my best friends. And I remember one day I got made fun of for liking Pokemon. Someone said such and such, and then it came up. And this was like late 5th grade. This wasn't even quite middle school. And they were like, Pokemon? That's dumb crap for babies, which I'm sure they heard from like their 17-year-old older sibling.
Right.
And I remember being like, absolutely like, what are you even talking about? It'd be like if someone's like, the sky, that thing's purple. And I'd be like, that's not even like kind of true. That makes no. I remember being that taken aback by it.
Right.
And of course, you're in elementary school, and someone said an insult, so everyone else has to like reinforce that insult.
Right. Everybody has to take sides immediately.
And then I remember the next day, Jason said something along the lines of, "Hey, do you have a Venusaur card that I can trade you for?" And I looked him dead in the face, and I repeated what that kid said to me. I said, "You still like Pokemon? That's for dumb babies." And we stopped being friends.
Oh,
Like, I crushed his soul so bad. And then, like, he was bewildered like I was. And so then I, like, drove it home with some other mean insult. For no reason. Jason, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I still think about, I'm 31 years old. I'll be 32 in September. And I still think about what I said to Jason in 5th grade and how much it crushed
Jason
him.
doesn't listen to your show now.
Jason, if you ever listen, I want you to know that I'm so sorry that I made fun of you for liking Pokemon and said those mean things to you. I had just gotten made fun of by that kid, Chris, and I was just projecting it onto you.
It wasn't me.
That's what it
I like to imagine
not
that
you,
Jason
Chris.
has been recommended this podcast by several people, and it makes him irate every time.
Yeah. No,
He checked it out one time because he was like, yeah, why not? And then he realized like it was your show. And he's like, no.
And then I'm on here like, I'm playing Pokemon. And he's like, fuck you.
Oh.
Venusaur's one of my favorite Pokemon too. I don't know why I said it. Jason, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I said that to you.
Weren't you mad at the newest Pokemon because Venusaur wasn't in it?
I was mad because Bulbasaur wasn't in it, and by proxy, Venusaur wasn't in it. I was upset. Bulbasaur's my favorite Pokemon. I feel so bad about it. I'm glad I got to get it off my chest.
Good.
I got to say it. Jason, I'm so sorry. I'm going to look him up on Facebook, and I'm going to send him a message and be like, I apologize to you for making... He's going to be like, I have no fucking idea who you are. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess I somehow never hit that age, or at least I never hit that opinion about anything that I can remember. It was a pretty smooth transition in every phase of my childhood because I was still just playing Mario and Zelda and whatever. Like even in high school, like when I should have been thinking like, oh, that's for kids. That's when Ocarina of Time came out. So everybody was like, no, Zelda's cool again. So I don't remember ever hitting that like dip where I had to distance myself from something.
Yeah,
but
I wonder if maybe going through that weird like early teenage macho phase was because my and this might be getting a little too personal, but I'm sure guys loving it. My parents divorced when I was 8, so I didn't really have like a father figure in my home.
So I'm sure that could have affected it.
I probably latched onto some older kids and was like, use that as a proxy, and that was my mistake.
Yeah, I had older siblings and older siblings' friends and fake siblings and fake cousins all living in our house at the time. There's probably like 16 people living in my house briefly when I was like 10 or 11. So,
holy crap. Yeah. That's a commune.
Yeah, we had a lot of any kids that either of my siblings knew that ran away from home ended up living at our house for a while. Mm-hmm. So
12 cats at one point, and that was awful.
Right. It was not fun waking up.
Cats shit anywhere, and you can teach kids.
It sucked anytime you'd wake up on a weekend and just be like, I really want to play a game, and you'd walk into the living room and there'd be like 8 sleeping 20-year-olds in there. You'd be like, never mind, I'm going to go back to the bedroom and not do anything for the next 3 hours.
Forget it.
But yeah, but because there were all those people constantly there having an influence on me, anytime that I might have possibly had that attitude where I was like, well, that's for babies. I had those people reinforcing like, oh, Donkey Kong's really cool. So I was like, oh, Donkey Kong is really cool. Those old kids said it.
There you go. Guy, what other repressed memories would you like to bring up?
I mean, how about Saturn smashing all of my fucking memories during the Zelda stream?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I spent like a good 2 of those 4 hours just complaining about how you were playing it like wrong.
I wasn't wrong. That was totally fine. The game let me do it.
I do like that it was immediately on the tail of criticizing me for not knowing everything about the game, though.
Sure.
It was a little bit of like in continuity vindication.
Okay, yeah, but you're not supposed to be able to hop down the side of Death Mountain to get into the Dark World. That's bullshit.
Well, sometimes you need to.
No.
You were like very upset that he wasn't quote unquote playing it right. Like you knew he was going to use glitches, right?
I did say it up front that I was going to do really dumb things in the game.
As I said, the minute that you jumped off of Death Mountain, you started playing a completely different game.
Yeah, better
know.
game.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Oh yeah, shit got weird then.
I'm looking forward to the show to talk about it. It'll be great.
Nice.
Most definitely.
And my last note is Final Fantasy 1 maybe where I got my item hoarding habit.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
That'll do it.
Jeez.
The GBA version where it's not such a pain in the ass to do it, I definitely I kept everything all the time.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I
no
need
reason not to.
700 different kinds of armor. What if one of them provides a slight boost to this one stat I'm worried about?
You know, one thing I forgot to mention during the show proper that I'll say now is with how limited your weapon and armor inventory was, your item bag had like 60 slots and there was like 10 things in the entire game that ever went in there.
Yeah. I assume the GBA version has a limit. If it does, I've never met it.
It's every single item.
Okay, well, there you go.
It's big enough to hold one of everything.
Yeah, like I was still doing that thing, like playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I'm like, okay, well, which one of these swords should I use, though? Because I don't know. Maybe I'll need it later.
Right.
I do this thing where I'm pretty good about, like, consumable items. I will use them. When I was younger, I would always hoard them. Now I'm like, nah, use that shit. Forget it. Just use it. Life's too short.
I won't.
But for some reason, whenever I upgrade weapons, I have a hard time selling my old weapons. I'm like, I'll literally never use it. It is objectively and mathematically worse than this new weapon. But what if I need it?
I am the exact opposite. I will immediately sell all of my equipment to buy the new equipment, but I will reset the game if I find myself accidentally needing to use a potion at some point.
So why do you buy potions?
What if I need
then?
that potion later?
Just don't buy them.
But what if I can't get to a store?
You're not using them anyway.
Yeah,
I found the root of the
force
problem.
myself to use items and to sell weapons.
Especially if it's an item that recovers MP. Like, fucking forget about that.
What about items that permanently raise a stat of some sort?
I'll save them till the very end of the game and then pour them all at once.
Okay. No, I use those immediately. Sometimes I don't even think about the character I'm putting them on. I'm like, this guy needs more agility, and I just throw it on.
Depends
him.
on the game, really. There are some games where I'll use those immediately. Like in the Dragon Quest games, I just immediately feed them to my hero every time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, wait, hold on.
Guy?
Hold on.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, that just reminded me. Obsidian announced like this like dark fantasy magic game during the Xbox thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elder Scrolls, but with the serial numbers filed off, which I'm stoked on because I don't buy Bethesda anymore. So
I have the Xbox showcase in the notes for the next episode.
Yeah, but you still gave the whole thing a big fat meh and said like nothing interested you. I kind of thought that one would interest you.
No, just
that one.
It looked like a Western
very much,
RPG.
Yeah, that one very much interests me. I can't imagine it would interest Saturn though.
Well, you know, I meant Justin when I said you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super stoked on Avowed. I'm kind of bummed that literally all they showed was like 5 seconds of what looked like not in-engine trailer.
Right.
But they very much were like, hey, basically it's Elder Scrolls by Obsidian, and I'm fucking down for that. Hell yes.
My thing about it was even the stuff in that event, which we'll talk about when we get to in the next episode, but
next week.
Yeah. The stuff in that event that did interest me is also on Xbox One and also on Game Pass on PC. So I'm like, well, you know, even if it's something I'm interested in, I'll play it, but I won't buy a new system for it.
Right. I don't think Microsoft wants you to necessarily.
I don't think they really do right now.
I think they just want you to play their games. They don't seem to give a shit whether or not it's exclusive. Like, I don't know.
Like at this point, I think they're like, hey, you're in our ecosystem. You're paying for Game Pass. Fuck it.
Yeah. You got Windows? Yeah. You got Microsoft Word? Yeah. Good enough.
You got
whatever. We
phones?
don't care. Just you got phones, don't you?
You guys have PCs, don't you?
Guy, thanks for coming and being on and producing the show and for all the money. It's great. We love it.
You're welcome. I love you.
We'll talk to you again soon. Actually, we'll talk to you again momentarily. But the listener at home will talk to you again possibly momentarily if you have the uncut version off Patreon, but possibly next week.
Right. Do the listeners talk to me?
They might in Discord.
No, I guess that's fair.
All right.
Anyway, thanks. Good night.
Bye.
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 Bye.